Welcome back, guys, to Limitless and Unfiltered. Welcome back to this space. My name is maaria.docarmo. I will be with you today. I wanted to chat with you guys about something that's been in my heart to talk to you guys about, but it's a little bit of a touchy subject. And well, we are limitless and unfiltered here. So I want to talk about parenting styles, and not necessarily the parenting styles, but what parenting styles can do for children. I have a 5 and a 4-year-old, and they're both completely different little human beings, as all kids are, even born from the same parents. It's just every single child develops their own personality, and I think it's a beautiful thing to watch flourish and grow. But I also feel like there's moments in your parenting and in motherhood and fatherhood, this can happen obviously for both, where you can start to see your child's, like your tiny child's light start to dim away or be chipped at, per se. So this analogy came from actually Awaken Your Highest Self, which, if you stayed and listened last episode, I talked to Angel Viloria about our experience at Awaken Your Highest Self with Danny Morel in Austin, Texas. Now, we talked about all of our like aha moments and like things that like we wanted to share with you guys, some breakthroughs, but there were things that, there's so much information at that seminar, guys. Like, it's wild. And there were things that, I wrote down in my journal that I was like taking notes while the courses were happening. There was things that came to me after, like weeks after, where I was like, hi, I remember listening to that. I remember, the reflections that we had on that, or like the different meditations, like all the things, right? And it so happens that today I experienced something with my daughter where it brought me back to that part at Awaken when Danny Morel set the stage for, a realization in my life. And so let me walk you through that. I'll all tie in to like different parenting styles and all that at the end of this. But when I was in Awaken, one of the things that Danny said at the very beginning, like one of the very first things that he said and was so impactful for me, was that he said that all children were born with like such a pure light, with such a, like, how do I describe this? Like just glow to them, right? Like everything is joyous. If you ever watch a child like take their first steps or go to the park or like, meet up with friends, whatever it is that the child does, everything seems so big to them and everything seems so joyous to them. Like they find joy in literally the smallest things. And so that is what he was saying when like he was saying that children are born with such a light, with such a like joy, right, in their life. And then he said, slowly, and this was referring back to yourself, like this was referring back to think of the times of your life where this has happened to you. And he said, different points of our life, beginning from the moment that we are children, we start to have that joy and that light start to be chipped away at us throughout our lifespan. And sometimes that starts very early in the child's life, and then sometimes, it's a little bit later, but eventually you start to realize that a lot of that joy, if you are awake or if you are open to like listening and like growing on yourself, you start to realize that a lot of that joy of your life started to be chipped away at different stages of your life. And it's different for everyone. And that is essentially what we are missing as adults, is to find the joy back in our life. And so, I at the time started to relay all of this information that he was giving us to different moments of my life, from childhood all the way into like teenage years and then early 20s, and even now as, an almost 36-year-old. My birthday is next week. But I started to relay that information to like my lifespan of like, where have I lost a bit of my joy, and has that joy been taken away from external circumstances of life, or for example somebody of influence of your life that said something to you that eventually you realize kind of like dimmed your spark, dimmed your light. And if we really look into ourselves and really look into like going deep within, we are going to notice that there are different areas of our life where that joy was chipped away. Sometimes it's a small little chip, sometimes it's a big chip, sometimes they're deep cuts, right? And that's not to say that like you're broken, or that like you're beyond repair, or that like something is wrong with you. That just it becomes almost like an awareness piece of yourself of like, I really used to find joy in that and now I don't. Like, why is that? And sometimes it's just that you outgrow situations, you outgrow people, and you outgrow things. And other times it's because they've been stripped away from you through different influences of your life or through different experiences that you had. And so for me, that was really eye-opening. That was another kind of breakthrough moment in the course. And actually, funny enough, a little sidetrack here, My mom and I are actually headed to the next Awaken Your Highest Self with Danny Morrell in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is, I love Florida and I have not been there in almost a decade. So I'm so excited to go and so excited that my mom's going to experience this with me. But, anyways, back on track. So, in that, me evaluating my life and realizing like how many different moments, like even little moments where it chipped away at my confidence, it chipped away at my joy, it chipped away at my like self worth, my self love, all of those moments, whether they were small or big, led to the person that I am now. And so here's the funny thing about all of that. Most of those moments of chipping away of your joy, of your light, they feel painful. They feel painful sometimes in the moment when you're aware of what's going on, and sometimes they feel painful after the fact. So it could be, months after, weeks after, years after, right? So all of these things, although painful, are things that happened in your life that have shaped you to who you are right now. And if you are somebody who's done inner work, who's been diving into like going deep within themselves of like personal development, you're going to realize that the person that you are now is someone that even if you're not 100% in love with that person, you are doing the action steps or taking the action steps, I should say, in order to heal what's inside for you to be better and take action in a better form, deal with situations, emotionally regulate, like have better communication with the people around you. And so I'm like sitting there at that Awaken in Austin in November, and I remember thinking of like all the different moments of my life where I felt like my light was chipped away, where my joy was chipped away, where my confidence was, slowly removed, right? Which led to a lot of my, I'm very open with you guys. So I've told you this before. It's led to a lot of my like self-worth and self-love physically of like me rejecting myself. And it wasn't until I was aware of all of these minor and larger situations that shaped me into thinking that I wasn't worthy of being loved, or I wasn't worthy of myself, or even self-love, looking in the mirror, that it all originates from all those tiny moments where compounded through time led me to be the way that I am now. Now, I am not saying that to get to this awareness, you have to hate yourself or something crazy has to happen for you to be like, oh my God, I have to change. Because if I'm being completely honest with you guys, my journey has been a hard one. And it's been a hard one because it shaped me into who I am. But the only reason that I have come to this awareness and have come to this awakened state of mind, state of being, emotional state is because I have decided to look back at all of those things that chipped away at my confidence or at my joy and my light and decided to ask myself, what was that teaching me? What did that teach me? It's not that I want to erase who I was or that I am ashamed of who I've been up to my almost 36 years of age. It's that I finally came to a point of like, these are all the little moments that have happened. How do I learn from those moments so that one, they don't happen again, or two, if they happen again, I am well equipped to be able to, deal with those situations. And now that I'm a mom, how do I help my children go through this process, right? Another thing that really impacted me about that, and this will all tie into what happened today with me with my daughter Veronica, is knowing that our journey in this life is perfectly as it should. And I know that's really, really hard to grasp. And trust me, I have felt grief. We are coming up 1 year of the anniversary of my friend no longer being with us in such a very tragic way, in a way that I'm still processing through today. So I have experienced a lot of grief. 2025 was a year of shedding not only old identities and mindset, but it was also a year where life really took a hit on my circle, on the people around me. Some of those people still alive and well, but no longer in my circle. And some of those people no longer with us in this earthly experience. And so, the reason I say all of this is because a lot of the time we look at situations that happen around our life or that happen in our life and we say, why is this happening to me? If you're a believer of anything above you, oftentimes a lot of people, this is where their faith kind of cracks and they start to question God and they start to question, like, why me? Like, why are you doing this to me? Why is this happening to me? And the framework around that really needs to shift as to why is this happening for me? And now I know if you hear this and you have somebody in your family who's, diagnosed with a disease or an illness, incurable, like you've had death in the family, you've had a lot of loss, a lot of grief, like things don't seem to go your way. You've had bad relationship after bad relationship or friendships, all of those things that are deeply wounding inside of your heart, you might probably get triggered by that. Like you're probably triggered by me even saying that like everything in your life happens for you, but that is a mindset shift that we as humans should have. Okay. And I don't think that I'm above anybody whatsoever. I don't think that I'm better than anybody, but I do know that I do a lot of inner work. I do a lot of this, what some people would call woo woo, and a lot of this like energy release and going deep within myself, like deep breath work, going to seminars and courses that stretch me out of my comfort zone in order to be able to get to this point of awareness of realizing like, my goodness, everything in my life that was painful, that I absolutely hated, that put me through the hardest moments of my life, that put me through the most pain that I've ever felt, like heartache, all of those things needed to happen perfectly as they did, even as painful as they are, in order for me to be the person that I am today. I look back at my life and I look at all of those moments, and a lot of those were last year. And I look at a lot of those moments and I ask myself, like, had I not gone through those, would I then have the mindset that I have now? And guys, that takes a lot of work. And this is where I tell you that I am proud of myself for the work that I have done on myself. Because here's the thing, some of those situations, some of the losses that we experience as humans can take some people out. It can. I am not diminishing that. I am not minimizing the fact that some people hit rock bottom when things around them seem to not go their way, or when life throws so many painful moments at them. I am not discrediting the fact that people feel hopeless sometimes and they hit that bottom where they're just like, I can't breathe. But the thing is, every single decision and every single thing that happens in our life, guys, is an action or a lack of action. And both are choices that we make. And that is so hard for some people to hear. And I am sorry if this is triggering you, but if it is, I invite you to look deeper inside of yourself as to why that's triggering. Guys, I was very reactive and triggered like that for years of my life, decades of my life. And I can tell you that the only reason that those things triggered me were because I had deep wounds within myself, going back to that child having their light slowly chipped away through their lifetime. That was what's going on. That's why it was deeply triggering for me. That's why every time I heard something like what I just said, I would get so mad, so mad. Well, you don't understand. You haven't lived my life. You haven't experienced my experiences. You don't feel what I feel. Guys, been there, done that. So those were like kind of another two moments of Awaken Your Highest Self in Austin, where I really like went back into the 5-year-old me, which I have to tell you guys that story later, but like the 5-year-old me, the 10-year-old me, the 13-year-old me, the 14-year-old me, the 15-year-old me. And then every single year after that, something happened that started to shift the way that I acted, reacted, and the way that I processed emotions, to the point where I just stopped processing emotions. Okay. If I'm being completely honest with you, I was very much someone who suppressed a lot of her feelings. And hence, that is kind of like the volcano that erupted and caused me to go on this expansive journey of myself. And all of this ties into the experience that I had with my daughter today, and it will tie into parenting. So the reason I wanted to give you guys those two kind of anecdotes of what happened at Awaken Your Highest Self in Austin is because today, my daughter is 5 years old. Okay, so she's just like, she's a baby. She's barely just living this life. And I'm not being biased here. Maybe I am being a little biased here, but my daughter is very heart-centered. She is very much a child that has the capability to understand things far beyond her years. And she has a heart that literally is like pure gold. She is super kind to her friends. She's always thinking about her friends. She's always thinking about like how she can make other people around her happy, which sometimes I wonder, is that a little like people pleaser kind of, melody that's coming through, and where did that come from? Am I instilling that in her? So yeah, parenting, that's a whole other thing that we'll talk about soon that I'll get to. But what I'm trying to say is my daughter, when she has to deal with other people around her, I mean, her sibling, yeah, they get into fights all the time. Cause like, truthfully, it's 4 and 5, they're 18 months apart. Like they're so close in age that like, they're so similar that sometimes they just butt heads. But at the end of each night, they hug each other, tell each other that they love each other, and they tell each other, sorry for if I hurt you today. That's what they say. Anyways, that paints a picture of what Veronica is like. So today, I do some like volunteering at their school, and their school is a very non-traditional school. I'm not obviously not going to mention the name of the school because that no, thank you. But it's a very non-traditional school. They're outside a lot, like they're very hands-on. They teach things in a different way, different formality and modality, and things are just different at this school. It's not a systemized way of teaching or learning, and so children really do thrive in this sphere, in this education system. And I'm not saying that other kids don't thrive in regular school. I'm just saying that for our family, this is exactly what we wanted, and it works beautifully well. We've never really had an issue with like bullying, and my kids have been there since Veronica was like, I don't know, 2, right? So they've been there for a long time. It was before they started school, like what is it? Daycare? Yeah, it was like daycare. And then they transitioned into the school years of learning. So we've never had an issue with bullying. The friends that they've had since like they were little are all pretty much the same friends. There are new kids that come in every single year and others that leave and whatever, right? However, today, and this is no shade to the school. I know some of you listen to me like at all. I love you guys so, so much. But today, my heart shattered as a mom a little bit. A lot, I should say. I'm minimizing that, okay? My heart shattered a lot. I really wanted to burst into tears. In fact, I did burst into tears after I left my volunteer position and went off to do some errands. I had to have a good cry in the car. So, without elongating this too much, my daughter she had said something, and then another one of her little friends said something in retaliation to what she said, and some of the other friends left my daughter's situation or left my daughter's side to go with the other girl's side. And I saw, because it all happened in front of me, I saw my daughter's face, and it was like the whole world stopped. It really was like the Matrix, like the whole world stopped. Everybody in the class was just moving so slowly. I couldn't hear a damn thing. All I could see was her face and how her smile went away and her eyes dimmed. And I could see how she was looking for safety. And at the time, I was the only adult in the room. And when she made eye contact with me, searching for that safety, she did come running to me, and I picked her up and I, cuddled her and comforted her. And there was no disruption to the class. I didn't say anything to the situation or to the little girls that this was all, unfolding. Kind of just let it be and just comforted her, because that was my maternal instinct, was that. But it brought me back when I had my cry in the car. It brought me back to the moment at Awaken where he said that as children, we are born with so much light, so much joy, so much happiness and purity. And throughout our lifetime, our joy and our light starts to be chipped away. Sometimes little, sometimes big, like I already mentioned. And it was in that moment when I saw her smile dim and I saw her eyes stop glowing, that I realized that that was one of those moments in her life that her light was dimmed by somebody else. And so obviously mother instinct is to cuddle, is to protect. I am not going to lie to you. I was really upset about the whole situation, specifically because I had witnessed this and I wanted to protect my daughter. I wanted to be the one to call out the other little girl's mom and let her have it. And I had to take a moment of myself after all of this, because my daughter did calm down and, went back to her daily things, back to normal essentially. But it sat with me for a long time. And when I sat in the parking lot crying before I left, having all of these emotions of I'm gonna bring this up to the other mom, I'm gonna speak to her. We're a very close-knit community, so we all speak to each other. So in my head, logically, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go and tell this mom what her daughter did, what the situation was. Also, because this is a situation that's also happened with other kids in the class, and I have always been able to intercept when I'm the one looking after the kids and noticing these behaviors. However, when it came to my daughter, I paralyzed. I literally froze and didn't know what to do other than to comfort her, emotionally regulate myself. And in the parking lot, while I was having all of these feelings and all of these thoughts of I'm gonna confront her mother, I had to sit there. I did some meditation. I put on some calming music. I'm not kidding you guys. This literally happened this morning. And I remembered that time at Awaken. I remembered what he said. And then I thought to myself, Maria, what your daughter experienced today, although painful for her and for you to witness, is exactly what she needs to go through in order to become whoever she is becoming and forming. Now, how does this tie to parenting? Because I said this was going to be about parenting. How does this tie to parenting? Well, in this moment of me realizing that her journey, Veronica's journey, although this moment was painful for her, physically I could see it hurting her heart and dimming her light. And in that moment, realizing this is exactly what needs to be happening in her journey. Her journey is perfect and it will shape her to be who she is. Now, as a mom, this is very difficult to get to this realization, to get to this level of awareness. And guys, I still have a lot of work to do in my motherhood journey, but I have come so far in it to realize that this level of awareness is actually very hard to get to. Okay? Because as a mother, as a parent, your first priority and your first instinct is to claw to protect your children. Claw. And I'm talking about like this is one of the most minor situations that could happen, but I could still, as her mom, see her pain. So normal instinct is to claw your way, to tell, to react, to do all the things that you need to do in order to protect your children, or rather I should say, in order to feel like you have completed your role of protecting your children. But here's the thing. All of these situations that are going to happen to your children are going to shape them to who they are going to be. Some of those situations are going to be really tough. Some of those situations are going to be minor, like the one that was today. Some of those situations you are going to wish that your child never goes through. Some of those situations, it's going to feel like it is extremely unfair and that your child should have never experienced that, or any child for that matter. However, it is then our role as parents to guide the child in how to emotionally regulate themselves through situations like this in order to be able to have the equipment, the tools that they need to be able to resolve this situation if it appears again in their life. That is the difficult part of parenting. The difficult part of parenting is showing your children that, yes, sweetie, this did happen to you, acknowledging their feelings. Okay, how did you feel? How did that make you feel? All of this, by the way, was a conversation I had with her after. Okay, said, how did that make you feel? Allowing them to express themselves. And when you notice that your child is kind of like pulling back on their emotions and holding it, you need to hold the space and be their safe space to allow them to feel. Don't rush through the conversation, which is something, by the way, guys, everything that I'm telling you not to do, I used to do. So I'm talking to you from a place of like having lived through this and having changed the way that I approach my communication with my kids. She's 5. And so asking your child, how did that make you feel? Giving them the space to actually communicate that with you. And I need you to understand as a parent that your job when they communicate their feelings to you is not to correct them. It's not to tell them how they should feel. It's not to tell them what they shouldn't feel. It's just to allow them to feel. Let them feel. Let them feel. And if it's painful, acknowledge that it's painful and tell them, yes, it's painful, baby. Feel through that. I know it doesn't feel good. I know it doesn't feel good, but it's important that you feel it, and then we're going to shake it off and like do, my kids are little, so we can do like fun little things with them afterwards in order to release that energy. And that'll be another episode because you can release energy stored up in your system in 90 seconds or less. Okay. But anyways, point is, allow your children to feel, give them the space that's necessary for them to open up to you and to tell them, because this is exactly what I did with her. And then you, as their parent, provide a guide for them in order to tell them how they should handle that the next time around if it happens. And here's the thing. You as a parent have a choice to show your child what to do or what not to do. Okay? But the thing is, we as parents usually form and guide our children with the way that we deal with our own emotions. So, my friends, if you are a parent and you are emotionally not regulated, you are reactive, your first line of defense is to attack or to defend at all cost. It's to claw your way through. It's to throw hands. It's the aggression. You are going to teach your children that. And that is the way that they are going to then react to life. I am not sitting here telling you to not tell your children to be firm in their conversations and to stand up for themselves, because that's exactly what I said to my daughter. I said, hey, baby, after we talked about our emotions, I said, hey, baby, let's talk about if that happens again. Okay? Because if that happens again, I said, mommy is sometimes not going to be here. Okay. And I said, and you need to stand up for yourself. You need to be respectful when you do it, but you need to be strong and firm and use your words. And obviously, this conversation with a 5-year-old is completely different than a conversation with a 10-year-old, than a conversation with a teenager, than a conversation with a 20-year-old. But we as parents shape the way that our children handle situations in their future. And if we can equip our children with bringing their emotional regulation, teaching them how to do that before acting or reacting, my friends, we are going to raise a generation of children that are going to be completely unstoppable, successful, and at peace internally. And how many of you in my generation are living in so much inner chaos that you don't know what's up and what's down in your life? My friends, the situation today all correlates to exactly what I learned at Awaken Your Highest Self. You need to become aware of the moments in your life where light was dimmed or was chipped away at, where your self-confidence was broken bit by someone or circumstances in your life that happened to you. You need to own those circumstances and say, I am no longer going to be a victim of the things that happened to me or the things that were said to me, because all of those situations, as hard as they were and as unfair as they seem and feel, shaped me to be the way that I am right now. And if you are a parent, that hits you double whammy, because now your job as a parent is to equip your children with the tools that you did not have in those situations. My friends, I wouldn't even call what happened today as a form of bullying, although the normal system would tell you that this was bullying. What I will tell you is that it's up to us as parents to guide our children in order for them to be able to handle these situations and come out of these situations without losing their light. Sure, their light will be chipped slowly by some people, some influences, just like my daughter's light literally faded in front of my eyes today. But you, as the parent and as their guide, have the ability to bring back that light, to show them that although someone or a circumstance chipped away at their light, they have the tools to be able to repair that and shine brighter. I hope that this all makes sense today, and I really just came and talked to you guys from my heart. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, a lot of these episodes I write notes because I'm nervous and I want to make sure that I articulate properly and that there are, that I'm not skipping anything and that I'm getting a point across. But 2026 has been the year where I have decided that I no longer need to curate anything in order to appear for the public in a certain light. This is who I am. This is how I'm showing up. This is my voice. This is my unique ability to be able to communicate. And I'm going to make it a promise to you to come and show up on here with themes and topics that are near and dear to my heart. Jenny has been completely busy and absorbed in her new adventure, which again, I am not going to say what it is. I will coordinate with her that hopefully next week the episode will be with Jenny and she will, tell you guys everything that's happening in her life, which is so freaking exciting. I am so proud of her. But in the meantime, while she's busy, you are going to get solo episodes from me, and it's just been a pleasure to bring to you my heart and my soul. And I can't wait for what 2026 has to offer in terms of, this platform and our little community that we have built here. I am so grateful for every single one of you who listens, who comments, who sends us DMs. And if you want to help this podcast grow, and if you felt enlightened with this episode, the easiest way to help us grow is to share, repost on your stories, just share our podcast. And that is the only way that people will get to know about us. So anyways, thank you for letting me share my heart today. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. I will see you next week.